What's up everybody, this is Jeremiah here, and today we're reacting to the video, The Pacification of Villains by Toon. Now, as a movie watcher myself, some here, some there, you do kind of see like villains not being true villains, like just not even broken villains, like just the villains is not even like pure evil or just like a broken reason of why they became a villain. It's just that it doesn't have that same aspect as before, like movies back then where the villain has a vendetta. Like we don't know, he's just pure evil. It's like that's what we love. But like sometimes, but like in the I'll give an example: The Lion King. Scar, right? He was a main antagonist to Simba and Mufasa, and Simba too, mainly Simba. But with the Mufasa movie coming out, it justified why Scar became that way, and was like, we didn't need that. We liked Scar for being this cold-hearted person. We liked that. We actually liked. I'm talking about the original movie, the original anime movie, not the remake. Please, not the remake. And it's like when you give a villain's justification of why that happens, of why they became a villain, it's like it takes away the substance of what became the character. It's like it really takes it away. So without further ado, let's react to the video.
One of the saddest things happening in cinema right now is the pussification of villains. Bad guys aren't allowed to be bad anymore. Take the fearless and charismatic Scar, for example. He was diluted into a misunderstood villain in the live-action.
Like I said, they basically made him. They basically kind of justified why he became a villain. Why? Why did you do this? Why? I just said it in the beginning of the video, and then look what happened. And then the first example, he just said, but he's a perfect example of this, though. He's a perfect example of this.
Remake of Lion King. Ralph, our beloved protagonist from Wreck-It Ralph, was turned into a villain in its sequel, with a feel-good message attached about codependency and insecurity. So, what happened? When did evil get so soft? And which studios still have the balls to push back? We can't talk about how weak villains have become without reminding ourselves how fierce they used to be. At first, no one did villains like Disney. Absolutely no one. Scar, Jafar, Judge Frollo,
Let's go back to him for a second.
Absolutely no one. Scar, Jafar, Judge.
Bro. If you ever watched The Hunchback of Notre Dame, bro, that's a golden movie, by the way. Yo, this dude is evil personified, bro. You see how he's basically a wolf in sheep's clothing. And that's in the Bible, by the way. He's basically a wolf in sheep's clothing. He portrays himself as this church preach guy. But as soon as the lights are dimmed down, bro, this dude is crazy, fam. He was feeding over Esmeralda. And the whole Hellfire music, oh, that's beautiful. That's peak music right there. That's amazing. The fire flowing right there. It's supposed to dance, like, bro. But he's one of the top tier villains of Disney, of animated Disney movies, bro. He's up there. He's up there.
Frollo, Maleficent, Cruella de Vil, Gaston, Ursula, you name it. But they weren't alone. DreamWorks had Lord Farquaad, the Fairy Godmother, Militia Tweety, and so many others. Even smaller producers like Turner Feature Animation gave us a taste of evil like Darla Dimple. All these villains had one thing in common: balls. And they were unapologetic about it. Take Ursula, a masterclass in villainy built on cunning and manipulation. She's driven by pure lust for power. She has no business with you pitying or understanding her past, even though she is a sea witch cast out from King Triton's court. Her only concern now is dominance, first by preying on the desperate and naive. She deceives Ariel with a seemingly fair deal, all the while orchestrating a plan to dethrone Triton and rule the seas herself.
Just for like a backtracker, have you seen the animation of this?
She deceives Ariel with a seemingly fair deal.
Look at this. That's evil personified, and that's what we miss. That's what I like. That's what we love. No backstory, no nothing. She did something wrong, and she's suffering the consequences of her actions from like long ago, and now we're seeing it from today. How she's like they're trying to get revenge, basically. But look at the animation. Look, she looks like frick. She looks crazy. That's what we like. That's what we love. This is why we want villains to be. That's what he said. The balls. Like she like. Look, bro. I'm sorry, I'm like for stuttering, but this is what we want. This is what we want villains to be like. All crazy, no backstory. For backstory, they might have done something wrong, and it's just they took it in a negative way, and then boom. That's what I like. This is what I like villains to be like. No, they did something wrong, and then they're suffering from the actions of it, and then. They going through it. They went through it. They're going through it. They're having their 10 toes down. They're standing their own business.
All the while orchestrating a plan to dethrone Triton and rule the seas herself.
Life's full of tough choices, isn't it?
Her defining moment comes when she seizes Triton's trident, transforming into a towering monster that blots out the ocean light. She is chaos incarnate, and she revels in it. There is no remorse, no hesitation, just cruelty. Pat Carroll's voice gives her a commanding presence, every word dripping with theatrical menace. And that's another great thing with these classic villains. Aside from their unapologetic wickedness, they had the charming presence that made the audience love them, sometimes even more than they loved the hero. Just look at Gaston in Beauty and the Beast. On the surface, he's the perfect man by village standards. Handsome, strong, and admired by all. But beneath that facade lies narcissism so deep, it borders on sociopathy.
Wow, you didn't miss a shot, Gaston! You're the greatest hunter in the whole world!
I know. Gaston cannot fathom being rejected, and Belle's refusal drives him to dangerous obsession. His motivations are rooted in entitlement. He believes he deserves everything he wants simply because of who he is. And when manipulation fails, he turns violent, rallying the villagers into a mob to kill the beast. His final moments, trying to kill the beast before falling, are the perfect embodiment of his arrogance meeting its end.
Pride comes before the fall.
But let's not forget his anthem, Gaston, a boastful celebration of ego and a summation of his motivations. Back then, every villain had theme songs which were power plays, musical declarations of war. Remember how Scar paraded his plan like a manifesto through Be Prepared?
A shining new era, tiptoeing nearer.
And these songs gave us direct access to the villain's mindset. Frollo's Hellfire summarized everything he is. A self-righteous fanatic who doesn't see his faults, but is quick to blame others for theirs, real or imagined.
It's not my fault. I'm not to blame.
These songs raised the stakes. They told you exactly what the villain wanted and made it impossible to look away. We don't even have to tell you about how theme songs have gotten worse over the years. The internet is full of it. The music seems to be in a downtrend, but more importantly than music of the past, villains provided conflict, which created tension. This is what Scar did to Simba. As a cub, Simba was dumb and naive, but he was also eager and brave because he had the security of Mufasa, who told him every time that he was next in line.
My dad just showed me the whole kingdom, and I'm gonna rule it all.
So, what did Scar do to that security? He kills it and plants self-doubt in Simba. Now, the kid doesn't think he should be king anymore. That was the conflict. It was that Simba, the hero, had to overcome, and when he eventually did, it was cathartic. Then, in Shrek 2, DreamWorks gave us a different kind of conflict. The fairy godmother pretends to be the helpful hand in a fairy tale.
Oh, Sweet Pea,
I love
I'm
her
your
in this
fairy
movie.
godmother.
But her smile hides blackmail, manipulation, and ambition. She once helped the king only to threaten to take it back unless her son Charming marries Fiona. She tries love potions, traps Shrek and friends, and aims to break hearts with clever cruelty. She looks cute, but man, is the fairy godmother a badass villain. But then, something changed and animated studios chose to give the good versus evil formula a fresh spin. There were those who did well with the subversion of the classical villains only because of one reason, which we'll talk about later. First, we need to cover up how there were some studios who were completely horrible. In their attempt to try something new, they ruined everything by pussifying our precious villains. And how they did this is both tragic and annoying. Modern cinema, and Disney in particular, has become adept at pussifying its villains, a process that robs them of their power, their purpose, and their very narrative teeth. The result is a loss of dramatic tension and a shift in the hero's journey from a battle for survival to an empathetic therapy session. The villains are no longer forces to be stopped, they are people who need to be understood. Evil has lost its edge, becoming fashionable and understandable. Take
not what
King
villainy
Magnifico
is.
from Wish. He checks some boxes. He's a vain sorcerer like Maleficent and has the arrogance of Gaston. But he is ultimately watered down by a narrative that feels both toothless and confused. His theme song, "This Is the Thanks I Get," is a perfect illustration. The tone undercuts the threat, and the song opens with bright pop-friendly beats and vocals that are fit for a lullaby.
I give the clothes off Benito back if you really needed that.
I'm not feeling scared by the music for real, or be having goosebumps off of the music. I don't want the music for villains having this pop feel. No, have musical classical with the violins and the pianos and the drums be scared, be having you having goosebumps, bruh. Be catchy, but have that same aspect of fear in it. Like the villains better do something drastic. Like, I can't even particularly, but like, with the Be Prepared by Scar, Hellfire from The Hunchback of Notre Dame, Jafar. I don't know about Jafar's. I don't know what Jafar's theme was, but his as well. Maleficence. Like, dang, man, we're not getting greatness anymore. It's just pure mid. We're getting mid.
While the bridge of the song briefly hints at the classic villain's darkness, it quickly returns to its upbeat, radio-friendly sound, preventing the audience from ever truly fearing him. This vibe-check villainy is a far cry from the classical ones we grew up watching. Remember all that critique on that song you saw previously? Yeah, it's all on point. But King Magnifico is the least pussified villain on this list. The way that every villain has to be redeemed nowadays is probably the worst. It's like they chickened out of a fight because they were scared of getting killed. Luckily, Magnifico wasn't afraid of being redeemed. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said about Namari in Raya and the Last Dragon. She starts off as a cunning, manipulative foil to Raya, pretending to be a friend, only to betray her in a way that shatters the entire world.
Okay.
Every step of the story reinforces her as the one obstacle standing between the heroes and peace. But then, at the climax, the film walks it all back, turning her into a misunderstood ally in the final minutes. In our opinion, Namaari shouldn't have been redeemed. If she was written as the villain who was irredeemable, it would have been perfect. This would have meant more stakes and more tension. The writers could have said that despite her mother poisoning her mind with a sense of duty for her tribe, she still had the choice to be good. But guess what? She chose to be bad because, we don't know, she wanted the power that came with it? This wouldn't be so far-fetched because, in real life, people are wicked and selfish, regardless of their upbringing. Not to trash the whole idea of learning to trust because, let's face it, it does make sense that trust is important to move a society forward. Though Namaari never did anything to earn that trust until the very last minute. Boone and Little Noi were—
That doesn't make any sense. So you're telling me that it was a clutch. It was like a get out of jail free card that she.
Were untrustworthy at first, but over time they earned Raya's trust. This was never the case for Namaari. This softening of villains is even more painfully evident in live-action remakes, which seem determined.
Don't get me started with the live action remakes, man. Tune. Don't get me started with the live action remakes, bruh. Please, don't get me started.
And to dilute and sanitize every classic antagonist. More than 80 years after the initial release of the original Snow White, the remake hit theaters. With it was the sad pussification of our dearly beloved evil queen.
Transform my beauty into ugliness. Change my queenly raiment to a peddler's cloak.
In the remake of Snow White, Gal Gadot's evil queen becomes a mere fashion statement. The original queen was defined by her iconic, consistent, and menacing design, which she rarely strayed from. Gadot's queen, however, is given a variety of elaborate outfits, making her seem more like a supermodel than a monarch consumed by jealousy. What was even worse is that this new queen, despite Gadot's best efforts, is poorly written, lacking the gravitas and dramatic villainy that made the original so compelling. We are not even going to talk about how cringy she looks while singing.
Sweet potion.
The script tries to give her a slightly expanded backstory, but it feels superficial, reducing her to a one-dimensional antagonist. The same can be said for Scar in the remake of The Lion King, whose legend was also painfully diluted. The original Scar was a master manipulator, a theatrical and cunning schemer whose every line dripped with venom and charisma. The remake's version is a more grounded, realistic antagonist, but he lacks the theatricality and sheer presence that made the animated Scar so memorable.
Plus, the remake is National Geographic, my guy. It really is just National Geographic.
His villainy feels less like a chosen path and more like a consequence of his circumstances.
Then call me Scar, so I will never forget.
The film gives him a backstory involving his jealousy of Mufasa and his feelings of inadequacy, but this added layer of psychological realism only serves to diminish the raw, unapologetic evil that made the original so terrifying.
Oh, now look, Zazu, you made me lose my lung.
Instead of being a unique character in his own right, he becomes a tired archetype, the bitter younger brother who lives in the shadow of his elder sibling. The legend of Scar was not a tragic one, it was one of pure, unadulterated evil. And the remake stripped him of that iconic status.
They did.
In modern storytelling, we've surrendered genuine villains for weak ones. The formula says, give a tragic backstory, then wrap it in redemption. But real stakes usually require irredeemable evil. You don't need every antagonist to be a monster, but you do need one that threatens, that refuses to bend a knee. It's not about relatability, but about being compelling. Now, villains are melodramatic and cute, and evil that looks good usually doesn't feel wrong. But do you know what's really crazy? A few decades back, misunderstood villains weren't exactly a bad thing. It's the writing. There was another studio who created villains who were not purely evil like Ursula or Maleficent, and guess what? Their villains made sense. The studio that made them was not in America or even in Europe, but far, far away. Enter Studio Ghibli, one of the few studios to have mastered the art of the misunderstood antagonist. Their films often avoid traditional Western structure. Many follow a 4-act rhythm without direct conflict, placing mood and growth above action and consequence. The 1988 movie My Neighbor Totoro, for example, has no villain at all.
Totoro? Is that what your name is? Totoro?
The tension comes from life itself. Sickness, uncertainty, loneliness. What makes this bold is the emotional richness that fills the space where a villain would usually stand. That's a radical move, especially when Hollywood still clung to mustache twirlers and damsels in distress. But when Ghibli does include antagonists, they are carefully designed. Princess Mononoke gives us Lady Eboshi, who is compassionate toward lepers and former prostitutes, but also merciless towards ancient forests. She's driven rather than evil in the classical villain sense. You don't understand her choices, even when you disagree. In the end, when she is redeemed, it felt right. A few years after this, Ghibli gave us Yubaba from Spirited Away, a sorceress who traps people in her bathhouse and steals their names.
He's destroying everything. It's called fortune.
She's selfish, controlling, and a capitalist nightmare, but she's also a mother, a businesswoman, and she's kind of fair. Chihiro survives by understanding her, not defeating her. And then there's Colonel Muska from Laputa Castle in the Sky. He is probably the only Ghibli villain who's not offered redemption. Muska's a symbol of militarism and imperialism. His desire to weaponize the floating city of Laputa is less about ego and more about the eternal human hunger to dominate.
No matter how great your technology might be, the world cannot live without love.
Therefore, when Pazu and Shita destroy the city's weapons and send Muska to his death, it's out of necessity. As Eastern storytelling teaches, villains are often systems in human form. They must be confronted, understood, or destroyed depending on what they threaten. Ghibli respects that moral scale. This is where Disney has fumbled. It sees the success of sympathetic villains, but misses why they work. It confuses empathy with excuses. It keeps writing bad guys like therapy patients instead of threats. And in doing so, it strips its stories of weight. Pixar at least still remembers how to handle it. Look at Lotso from Toy Story 3. He has a backstory. He was abandoned by his owner Daisy and replaced. But instead of becoming a tragic figure, he chooses bitterness.
You see?
He builds a prison out of a daycare.
See, all these villains, all these people who have these backstories, they have the choice. They have a choice. They have the free will to choose. Good, evil. And guess what they chose? Evil.
He smells like strawberries, but he rules like a tyrant. Woody calls him out directly, saying that lots of toys have been abandoned, but Lotso chose to become cruel.
She don't love you no more. Now come on!
Perfect scene.
That's the key. His past
when they replaced Lotso, bro, and he you just saw the scene, but still, he felt bitterness, he felt jealousy. And so guess what? He said, she don't love you no more. We going our own way. He chose the bad side. He chose the dark side. He chose it.
Explains his behavior, but it doesn't excuse it. He's a warning about what Woody might have become if he never learned to let go.
Especially when Buzz came in the picture in the first one, yeah. Because when Buzz came into play, he was bitter to him because Andy was playing him a lot more because he's this high space tech. Yeah, he was like a high space tech, toy that and plus he was new as well. So it was like, and there's a whole scene where Andy with all Buzz Lightyear stuff, and the scene, like the meme, like the Toy Story meme, where Andy said, like, I don't want to play with you anymore, throws Woody. Yeah, that scene, and he had a dream of that because he didn't want to be replaced. But guess what? He let that go. And guess what? 4 movies later, soon to be 5. Could have stopped at the trilogy, Disney, really? I mean, Pixar, really? Could have stopped the trilogy. But anywho, 5 movies later, soon to be 5 movies later, they buddies. They're best friends.
Lotso is a perfect foil. He mirrors Woody's worst potential self, which makes the final conflict personal.
Where's your kid now, Sheriff?
When he refuses to save the toys from the incinerator, it lands because he could have, but he still didn't. That moment reinforces that even a character with a sob story can still be beyond redemption. Pixar doesn't flinch from that truth. And Pixar isn't the only one. There are 2 more studios who have consistently refused to pussify their antagonists. They understand that storytelling thrives on genuine conflict, and that a villain's purpose is to embody the protagonist's fears, weaknesses, and anxieties, not to serve as a cautionary tale about misunderstood trauma. We're, of course, talking about DreamWorks and Sony Pictures Animation. In recent years, DreamWorks even gave us not 1, but 3 villains.
I don't want to say he's a villain. He's just doing his job. Death in Puss in Boots was crazy. He's just doing his job, to be honest with you. He said he's death, straight up. Just the personification of death itself. He's just doing his job, to be honest with you.
In Puss in Boots: The Last Wish,
sure, why not?
Disney can't seem to write 1, and DreamWorks dropped a whole trio. That's an open challenge to them. Starting with Death. He is a personal hunter, stalking Puss because of his reckless waste of 8 lives. Now he is here for payback, and he enjoys it.
I just love the smell of fear.
That choice makes him far scarier because it's not about the natural order, but about a vendetta. The fear he creates in Puss forces him to confront mortality for the first time in his 9 lives. Puss doesn't kill Death. He learns to live with him, literally and symbolically overcoming his fear.
You know we will meet again, right?
Sí, hasta la muerte.
Then there's Big Jack Horner, who might be one of the most unapologetically evil villains DreamWorks has ever created. The man has no redeemable qualities, no tragic backstory meant to make you feel bad for him. He's just a greedy, self-absorbed man-child with bottomless entitlement. His lines sell exactly who he is.
You're not gonna shoot a puppy, Jack?
Yeah, in the face. Why?
Or even better.
So cute! Think that would work on me. Don't you know I'm dead inside?
That's pure villain joy. The humor comes from amplifying how gleefully awful he is. When Disney was busy erasing edges from its bad guys, DreamWorks doubled down on making a villain who would step on the edges, set them on fire, and laugh while doing it. But let's not forget Goldilocks and the Three Bears. While Goldie ends up as a hero by the end, her initial role complicates Puss's quest. She starts as a rival with her own selfish motivations, before her arc takes a more empathetic turn. DreamWorks manages to give you a character who can evolve without diluting the threat of the other 2 villains. Sony also had a similar movie with 3 distinct threats in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. There's Kingpin, a crime boss willing to tear apart dimensions to get his family back, the Prowler, whose personal connection to Miles makes their fight heartbreaking, and Dr. Octavia, who's brilliant, unpredictable, and ruthless. Each villain adds a different kind of pressure on Miles, keeping the stakes varied and alive. The sequel, Across the Spider-Verse, doubles down. The Spot begins as a joke but evolves into a terrifying multidimensional threat. At the same time, Miguel O'Hara becomes an antagonist through his unyielding belief in keeping the canon intact. Then, surprise, surprise, an alternate Miles Morales brings a personal, emotional layer to the conflict. That's 3 more villains, all with clear motivations and real stakes. Now, if you want another deep dive into modern villains, go check out why people are wrong about Dawn Bellwether, and how she almost became Disney's greatest twist villain.
Yo, shout out to Toon for this great video. Yeah. We gotta make villains great again. We got to make these animated villains. We gotta make these fictional villains great again. We got to. Disney, you have to take notes from Pixar. You gotta take notes from Sony, and you gotta take notes from DreamWorks. At least those 3 still keeps villains as they are. Even though if they have a tragic backstory, they still chose the evil way. They still chose the wrong way, and you can't sympathize with that. Some of them have tragic backstories. Some of them have tragic backstories that, even though it's tragic, they still chose the bad side. And some of them don't have no tragic backstory. That's who they are. Which clearly Disney is lacking. And plus with Sony, 3 for 3. I bet you it's gonna be even 3 more for the Beyond the Spider-Verse. Even Beyond the Spider-Verse, I bet you're gonna have 3, because you're gonna have Miguel. You're gonna have again, it's gonna be the same 3 from across, because the problem, Miles, Miguel, trying to set up the canon to make Miles' dad die, which I bet you he doesn't even know himself. I bet you he's the anomaly. I bet you he's the anomaly. And you got Spot, the clown from interdimensional multiversal threat. My goodness gracious me. Dang, bro. That's crazy. Off of a donut throw hit his head, and he cost him to lose his job. Oh my gosh, bro. It is crazy. That's crazy. And plus Spot was the one who brought the Spot the Palos, Miles, the Spider into their universe. So it's like, is it his fault or Miles' fault? In my opinion, I think it's his fault for putting in the Spider into their universe's place. I gotta see that's his fault, to be honest with you. But if you disagree with me, you can disagree with me. It's fine. But yeah, shout out to Toon for this great video, man. Make animated villains great again. Make animated villains great again. So the original video will be linked in the description down below. Follow me on all the socials. Like, comment, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications to get updated on what I do. You know what being said, this is Jeremiah. God bless you. Jesus loves you. Repent. Be saved. Peace.